depending on where you are. As you know, I moved here to St. Thomas. I got my hair braided like an island boy. It's fallen out. Apparently, it still looks good according. So we're here today to talk about spiritual health and self-love. So we got three awesome guests here. I'm gonna go over some things real quick. As usual, we always need more guests. We love guests, and I know that you have something you have to share. The whole point of the show is it's everyday people sharing everyday information for everyone to grow. I know that you've got something. Sign up, be a guest. It only takes 5 minutes with me, and 5 minutes later on, 30-minute episodes. It's super easy. You can ask any of our guests. We make it so easy. So please sign up. We love guests. We also need more topics. We're running out. We only got like 2 more months of content. So if there's anything that you want, especially on spiritual health, we've done meditation, we've done all sorts of different things. But if you have a topic that you're kind of curious about, or maybe something that you know about, let us know. We'd love to hear it. Without further ado, if I were to improve my spiritual health with self-love, here's a little tip I would do. And I will shout out Ed Milet, who taught this to me in his book, The Power of One More. When you have a negative thought, it's most important to note that and come up with your little piece of paper in your head and write it down. I can't do this. I don't look good. I'm not smart. Anything negative. When you write it down in your mental notebook paper, you take your mental pen and you just draw one line through it. That's it. Then a couple days later, that thought may reoccur. When you see it, put it back in there, draw one more line on it. Eventually, you will cross out that whole thought and your mentality will shift and you'll no longer be hearing that negative thought. Trust me, I've done it. It works. Try it out sometime, but scratch out negativity. Physically do it. Stop. Anytime you hear yourself like, oh, I could never do that, stop. Take out your mental notebook. Take out your pen. Write it down. Cross it out. I promise you, it's going to help your self-love so much. It's fantastic. But we've got 3 more tips for you today. So first things first, we're going to pull out Michelle. Michelle, how you doing today?
I am great.
I've got a question for you. It's an easy one, I hope. Michelle, who are you?
Oh, that's an easy question. So I am Michelle Archibald, born and raised St. Louis, Missouri. I am great. I am a motivational speaker. I am a children author. I am a confident author. And I am a confident coach. And so, born and raised St. Louis, Missouri. Happy to be here. So I'm many things, but most importantly, I'm confident.
Confident. All right. Well, I've got a question that may help out with that. If I wanted to improve my spiritual health through self-love, what advice would you give me?
The advice I would give you is first, the biggest, keep your hair confident. But the key thing starts with the self. That's number one, right? To have self-love, you got to start with self. So that's the key thing is self ties into how you feel about yourself, ties into spiritual love, ties into self-confidence. So it starts with self.
Self. All right. All right. Now, what on your life journey kind of led you to this? Confidence for
Oh,
self-love.
God. So what led me to it is that my parents, they planted a seed of confidence in me at the age of 5. I can remember that, so don't ask my age. But at the age of 5, they told me I could do it. They told me that you can do anything that I kind of asked to do. They was like, oh yeah, you could do it. Hey, if you look at me, yeah, I soccer for about 10 to 15 years. So I said, hey, I want to play soccer. They said, yeah, you can do it. So it started there. But through life, through trials, through trauma, you that self-confidence. And I did. And so why I'm so passionate, because that I actually remember that foundation of planning this in. It got me through trauma. I had to remember confidence is everything, and confidence saved my life. So I am passionate about self-confidence.
How did it save your life?
Wow. Now you're getting into my business, but I want to share this with the world. Is that I
I
went
got two
through.
more minutes to get
I
into your
was
business.
You're getting my business. You're my business. But here's the thing. This is the business that I want to share is that being in an abusive relationship, having someone beat you down, and not just physically but mentally. And then also just being myself. I'm a part of the LGBT community, so just being myself, being authentic. So that's why I'm just so passionate about self confidence. And I know if you got a little seed, the little seed that's a mustard seed of confidence, you can do all things.
Okay, so I lied to you. I have another question. What would you recommend for someone that may not have had that confidence instilled in them by their parents? There's thousands of things that could happen, perhaps family issues, etc., etc. What would you recommend if I needed to get confidence like right now to increase my self love?
Well, what we really is just know that self confidence is a skill, right? So it's just building on that skill. What I always
Right.
recommend is think about your childhood and think about 5 things that you did great. Sometimes we have to think about our past accomplishments to bring us forward to know that, guess what? Hey, I won a spelling bee when I was in 5th grade. I ran track and won a gold medal. You have to think back to your previous accomplishments to bring you forward to know that you can do.
That is awesome. That's powerful. Let's go back to your past accomplishments, right? 5 things you like about yourself, and build a seed. I really like. Oh yeah, Duty, I like that. Self confidence is a skill. I was just gonna say that. Duty, that's brilliant. I like that you said that. And like any skill, you can start off terrible, and then it's time, practice, and perseverance essentially to build it.
Yes,
Wow,
yes.
Michelle, look at you already changing lives.
I got
All
one
right.
thing. I got one more thing. Everyone has self confidence. It's like temperature. So you're never at a zero. It just
Okay.
has to be adjusted. It just has to be. So everyone has confidence. No one does not have confidence.
And dropping some knowledge, Michelle. Oh man. All right. Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much. We're gonna move on to our next guest, but we're definitely gonna bring you right back out here in a little bit. Thank you. Wow. Drop some nuggets on that one. Confidence is a skill to make yourself love. We got temperature. Nobody's ever at zero confidence. Woo. That's crazy. All right. We got our next guest coming out. Here we are. It's Christina. How are you doing today?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing amazing. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm always doing great. Always doing great. I've got a quick little question for you. Hopefully, you can answer. Christina, who are you?
I am a passionately curious human, okay?
That's
And
great.
recovering boss babe, proud
Recovering
survivor
boss
of
babe.
hustle culture. And that's who I was before. And now I'm just trying to be the happiest human that anybody knows in any given day.
Sounds like you might have a lot of self love. I got a question about that. If I wanted to improve my spiritual health through self love, what would you recommend to me?
Well, I recommend that you go back and watch the first 5 minutes of this video because Michelle did a knockout job. But in addition to that, if I could add one thing, it would be values-based boundaries as a
Values
key.
based boundaries. Okay.
Yeah. So your values, and everybody has a values hierarchy. Okay. There's no such thing as a negative value. The word itself demands a positive thing. But of all of the values that anybody could hold, we have individual values hierarchies, meaning there are going to be certain values that we up prioritize, and there are certain values that we deprioritize, meaning we're going to sacrifice the lower ones, and the ones at the top of the list, we don't like to sacrifice those at all. We don't like anything that conflicts with those values. So your top 3 core values are your most consistent part of your personality, and they make the healthiest boundaries for your life. So if you just radically eliminate the things that conflict with those top 3 values, you will experience a lot less friction in your life. And less friction means less emotional waste, better energetic bandwidth, and just overall less what I call burnout.
Less burnout. Okay.
Less
So
burnout.
know your hierarchy of values. That's interesting. We talked a lot, I think it was last week during mental health, about values and boundaries. I like the point of the hierarchy. That is, wow. It's funny how so much stuff comes together when you start talking to so many people.
Isn't that amazing? I call
All
it
right,
quantum
Christina.
networking. I think it's fun.
Quantum networking.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. That's a topic. We're gonna go over that.
I'll come
Look
back
at
to that
you.
one.
All right, you'll be our first guest on that one. So then, one last little question. We got another minute or so. What happened in your life journey that taught you all about values-based hierarchy, or core values essentially?
Yeah, so I was on a pretty vicious burnout cycle. I'm a firstborn daughter. And so I'm a perfectionist. My firstborn daughters will know what I'm talking about. We were co-parents before we hit kindergarten, and it gave us very unique life perspectives. So I'm no good at, or I haven't ever been good at asking for help. And I was in this burnout cycle. And what I found out was that there were too many things happening in my day-to-day life that conflicted with my core values. And when I started figuring out what my core values are, aligning my activities, my opportunities, my day, my habits with those, it just got easier to go through a day. And so I led down that rabbit hole after the third burnout in 2020, where I built a multi-million-dollar business. It owned me. I didn't own it. And when I was burning out, I wanted to burn it to the ground with me.
Are you still running that business?
No, I scaled it and sold it.
Okay.
And now I started another business that is actually more in alignment with my values than the first one had ever been.
What is your current business? Shout it out. Let's promo it.
Yeah, so I am a burnout coach, and I help people navigate through burnout, specifically firstborn daughters who are currently experiencing or recovering from burnout. I help a lot of people, but firstborn daughters are just kind of where my heart is.
Awesome. That is fantastic, Christina. Our little time is up, so I'm going to move on to the next guest. We'll bring you back out in a few minutes. Thank you so much. All right. Get your core values together if you want some self-love. And if you need a burnout coach, hit up Christina. We're now bringing out Makove. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Quick, easy question for you. Who are you?
I am a mom of 3 adult children who are all married and a 6-year-old, which gives me a very unique perspective on raising kids, because for the first ones, there wasn't all the electronics and all the social media and all that. So navigating kind of both worlds and being able to walk alongside moms that are in the midst of it, because I'm in the midst of it again.
Yeah, that's kind of fascinating. Okay, well, I've got a very important question for you, Makove. If I wanted to improve my spiritual health with self-love, what advice would you give me?
I would tell you that you need to believe that you're worth loving.
Believe you're worth loving. How does one do that?
For me, it was a lot of, well, that's your next question. Treat yourself like someone you love. So often I come from a Christian perspective, and so often that perspective says to value others more than yourself. And that leads to actually self-neglect, which is not what was ever intended. That's not what God meant when he said to love others. He said, love others as you love yourself. So if I'm not loving me, then I'm not really loving others either. So it's a helpful question to say, like, the golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And actually, we need to do for ourselves what we would do for others if we come from that place of self-neglect, because we're great at putting others first and valuing their opinions and meeting their needs at the expense of ourselves way too often.
Wow, that's pretty insightful. The opposite of the golden rule.
Well, we have to flip it. Yeah.
That reminds me of a good, famous speaker named Eric Thomas that I saw. And he pretty much, his speech was all about you do you, and make sure that you're doing you. And it's hard to pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing you and loving you and happy, it's hard to spread out and help others. If you're not, you got to love yourself first. That kind of old cliche before you can love others. So I guess let me ask you this then: what on your life journey brought you to this advice? How did you learn it?
Kind of like Christina, but not in the business world, like burning out as a human. Of like I'm always giving, and like when do I matter, and how do I raise my kids to be confident, self-loving people if I'm not doing it? Because there's no more is caught than taught. So regardless of what I say, they're going to do what I do. And I didn't want them to feel like me and to always be neglecting themselves and questioning themselves and thinking they didn't have value. It's like, you're tremendously valuable, incredible people to make a huge impact. So I have to believe that about me too, if I'm going to pass it on to anybody else.
That's very, very true. Very true.
For me, the most important people to pass it on to is my kids.
This makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So is there anything specific you teach them? Do you just kind of show them by example, or do you ever like sit down and say these are things that you can do to increase your self-love?
We have lots of conversations about listening to your emotions and deciphering the information that you're giving you, because they're telling you if you're neglecting yourself or if someone else is not treating them the way that they need to be treated, and giving them the skills to be able to have enough love and respect for themselves to say, hey, I need something here. This isn't working for me, whether that's how they're treating themselves or whether that's how other people are treating them. So it kind of ties in. It is really cool how people come together. Like, it ties in with that confidence that Michelle talked about. It talks about the values that Christina talked about. Like, it all just comes together for, you have to value yourself enough and have that confidence to say, hey, I need something different.
I need something different. That's an important message, especially today. Well, McCove, thank you so much. At this point, we are going to bring everyone out and do our round robin section. Hey, Christina. Hey, Michelle. So let's go ahead and start with my tip, which is scratch out negativity. That's a quick refresher. Michelle, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it aligns with everything that we kind of talked about, and to scratch out negativity. I just think it's great, and it's so easy. It's simple. Scratch out negativity. So I just think it's really,
Scratch
So I think it's an easy to do.
Awesome. Christina, what are your thoughts?
It's good.
Yeah, I've never thought about it in that terms, but I think it's really easy to kind of pretend like those ideas shouldn't exist. This is kind of like a toxic positivity culture that has been pretty prolific in the self-development world. And it's this idea that if you shouldn't even have these thoughts. So I think giving them room to exist, not making that mean anything about yourself, and then just eliminate it. Like, I don't actually need this. It exists, but I don't need it. I think it's a really great exercise, especially to have it visually.
Awesome. Yeah. McCove, what are your thoughts?
I agree that that's a fabulous idea, to be aware of your negative thoughts and to cross them out. And I guess like one tip I would add to that, I encourage the people that I work with to replace it with the truth. So
good. Okay.
So yes, we want to scratch out the negative, but nature hates a void, hates a vacuum. So fill it with something good, or there's just going to be more negative rushing back in there.
That's a great tip. Great addition. I like that. All right, Michelle, do you want to quickly refresh us on what your tip was?
Well, my tip, basically, confidence is everything. And things that I recommend doing with my confidence coaching is basically think about 5 achievements, accomplishments that you've done in the past, and that will help you realize that you have confidence, that you have accomplished something. And so that can help remind you, and then hopefully it can help build you.
Awesome. I love it. Christina, what are your thoughts on that?
I think self-image, or like how we perceive ourselves, is huge when it comes to creating that confidence. And you have to be that participant that you want in your life. So I really do admire people who have found the recipe for that confidence and share that with other people, because I was missing that for a very long time. And it wasn't anything, I didn't have a bad childhood, but I didn't have like an intentional parenting where it was like confidence was intentional. And so I think that it's really great. I think it's really great advice.
Awesome. Good feedback. McCove, what are your thoughts?
I think it's so good for that suggestion to look back and reflect on what you've already done to build your confidence. And coming from the Christian perspective, the particular view I came up in, like, it wasn't okay to be confident, which again is wrong. And so again, believing like, yeah, I can be confident in how I'm made and the gifts I have, and I can like keep record of, oh, here are the things I do well, and that can build my confidence.
Awesome. That's great feedback. Christina, do you want to refresh us real quick on what your tip was?
Yeah, everybody has core values. They're the most consistent aspects of a person's personality. You can change your beliefs, you can change your habits, you can change your socks, and I hope you do. But values are not something that can be changed. And so when you use your values to create your strongest boundaries in your life, that's when you really start to eliminate a lot of friction, a lot of energetic waste, you get a lot more bandwidth back to do the things that you want to do. And if you look at people who are just, you look at them and you're like, oh my gosh, they're doing everything. How do they do that? They're just like little Energizer bunnies. Well, they're doing the things that they are supposed to do. They're doing the things that align for them and their values. And living that way without that friction, energetic waste, and things like that is really enjoyable. It's definitely preferential to the other way, in my opinion.
Love it. McCove, what are your thoughts on her tip?
I think that's fabulous to align with your values, because if you don't, like, you're basically creating a war within yourself, and that is definitely not loving yourself.
That's self-war. Oh, man.
Uh-huh.
Michelle, what are your thoughts on Christina's tip?
Great tip, because just aligning with your values, it's almost like not worrying about anyone else but yourself. Everything we're talking about is still about self and making sure you're okay, making sure you're okay mentally, physically, all of that plays a part. So I definitely agree. And then having those boundaries, that's really key to be able to align your values.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's move on. McCove, what was your tip real quick? Refresh us.
My tip for self-love is believing that you are worth loving.
Believing you are worth loving. Christina, what are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of complicated thoughts on that also, because, coming up from a lot of religious trauma, as I think about it, and misinterpretation of certain doctrines and things like this, which is very funny that we're meeting today to talk about this. But the overwhelming sense that is just the right perspective. I don't know how I know that that's the right interpretation of this, except for that I know that that will produce much better results in anybody's life if they adopt that perspective. And so for that reason, I'm like, you don't have to explain anymore. I will agree to that, because I think people will just live better lives if they act as if that's true.
I love it. Michelle, what are your thoughts on McCove's tip?
Here's the thing. I love it, and I feel like I am a poster child for that, because at an early age with my parents, I was the only child, so I knew I was worth loving because they exemplified that with me. They put that in me. So that has really got me through my whole life of exes and good and bad, that I knew and know I'm worth loving. So I agree.
All right, guys, this comes to the best part of the entire show. We have to work together to come up with our daily challenge for the next week. And we will be challenging and tagging all of you to join us as well. So the rules is it has to cost $0. So anybody in the world in any country can join us. And it needs to take less than 5 minutes. So there's no excuses that it takes too much time. So we can all improve the world's spiritual health with self-love. What ideas do you guys have?
So what I would encourage oh, sorry, Michelle, I didn't mean to interrupt. You go first.
No. Well, what I was going to say is, I don't know if this works or not, but basically wake up, look in the mirror, and do 5 positive things about yourself. Say that in the mirror.
5 positive affirmations. Christina, what was your idea?
Yep, 5 positive.
So once you have identified what your top 3 values are, your core 3 values, you never have to go back and do that work again. Okay, so once you've identified what those are, go through your daily activity list and see if everything supports or conflicts with those values, and then ask yourself why you're participating in the things that conflict with those values. What is the net benefit? And for me, what I found is that the benefit, or the perceived benefit, was never big enough to put up with the friction that it was going to cause in my life. So I started eliminating those things and filling them in with things that did align with my values. And I'm just a much happier person because of it.
So net benefit, that sounds a lot like something I teach called your return on energy. What energy is this going to take, and what energy is the return on it going to work out in my favor?
Yeah,
so that does align with the core values a lot.
Yeah, I call it return on involvement. It's kind of the same thing. ROI comes from a very former career in finance, but it's like your return on involvement.
Is it worth this energy to get this result? And if the answer is no, then it probably don't align with your core values.
Yep.
Any ideas from you, McCove?
Just practicing awareness of what you're thinking, how you're treating yourself. Like you were saying, like catching those negative thoughts, because the first step to change is awareness.
All right, so I think I may have a challenge. We'll see how you guys like it. So we're going to start in the morning. You're going to identify one core value. So at least you get down that path of core value, start identifying something that's huge to you that you think is really important. You're going to identify 3 positive accomplishments, right? That kind of takes in Michelle's side. And then you're going to identify 1 negative thought. Actually, we're going to do the negative thought first so that we can cross it out and then replace it with 3 positive thoughts.
Nice.
Like McCove said. Yeah. How do you guys like that?
All right.
Like it.
Yeah.
And that should take 30 seconds at most. You can do it in front of a mirror if you want to. Michelle says she's going to do it there so she can look at herself while she's doing this. So identify a negative thought you've had in the last 24 hours. Think of 3 positive things that you've done to kind of counteract that. And then let's start thinking about core values. I think core values are so important. I like every week we in my team meetings we all identify core values and alter them and change them if we need to, or just focus in on them. Were you about to say something, Christina?
No, they're so foundational. It's the strongest foundation that you could build on top of is values.
I agree with that. And all right, so identify one core value every day. If you want to go back to it, that's fine. You can reiterate old core values as long as we're getting those in our head. And then identify a negative thought you've had. And then we'll get rid of that by identifying 3 positive accomplishments you have done. And with that, the world should see more self-love.
Definitely.
Everyone sound good?
Brilliant.
Yes.
All right. Well, that will conclude our
Sound
show
great.
then. Thank you so much for coming. You guys are amazing. Hopefully we'll see you in a future episode. Thank you all for watching yet another episode of Millionaires Are Made. Today we talked about spiritual health and using self-love to grow there. We've got an awesome daily challenge that I challenge you to join us with every day. We're going to identify one core value. We're going to identify a negative thought we've had, and we're going to replace it with 3 positive accomplishments that we have done. Hopefully you can join us. Go to millionairesaremade.com. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Insta. Join our Facebook group, Millionaires Are Made. Also, we'll be posting all these challenges all over there, and hopefully we all can get a little more self-love. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Millionaires Are